don't even know what to say about this. Max Holloway taking on Justin Gaethje. Serious question. And this is how I want to set it up. Are these guys, win or lose, going to be the same after this fight?
They're not. But that is every big action fight. That's why guys like Poirier, that's why these lightweights of this great action fight era, and I'm going to now toss Max Holloway in there because the one time he was in this division, he was part of one of those against Poirier. But you know what I'm talking about. You can call them the 4 kings, the 5 chefs. I don't know what we're doing here, but when you're talking about Chandler, Gaethje, Poirier, Alvarez, I mean, this era has been insane. You're always leaving a chunk of yourself in the cage, and the fact that guys like Gaethje and Poirier and Holloway and Poirier have been able to just stay at this level despite that damage accrued is a testament to why they are where they are on their way to true immortality, whether some of them ever win the full championship or not, because they consistently give this to us. But I think we went a little too harsh on is this going to be too much for Max? Is this going to be the end of his career? Is this the worst fight ever? Didn't you just prove that you're still super, super elite in your own division? And the longstanding champion who beat you 3 times, which was a major obstacle, just got defeated. Maybe, as we argued, you should have stayed in that lane. But Max Holloway didn't get to where he was by thinking practically, by not swinging big. And I have to give him this. Has he accrued an insane amount of damage, even in fights he won? Yes. But his ability to bounce back almost every single time from situations where I had extreme fear as both a fan of him and a journalist and a fan journalist who loves interviewing him and loves what Max represents as like an ambassador for this sport, for Bushido, for just huevos, right? Just absolute. We remember that TV interview that got him pulled. And I was questioning literally if he was going through some type of inner physical breakdowns that would never be the same. He was the same. Repeatedly got through that war with Yair, won that really great close fight with Arnold Allen. I mean, he's still that dude in every way. And what I've loved the most about the build to this fight from Max's standpoint is the public campaign he's been going on to sort of shake us up, fans of him, journalists, and say, all you guys are talking about is the negativity and the fear that you have that I'm making a horrible decision and I'm going to get hammered out and carried out. But that's why I'm in this sport, to take on these challenges. And I think when you really listen closely to Max's words, he talks about how he accepted that Poirier rematch on short notice. He was still in the reign of his featherweight crown. He purposely did not put on a lot of muscle or change his body at all so that it wouldn't mess with him going back down in weight. He was still in a competitive and close in one of the greatest action fights in this sport's history, although, yes, he took a lot of damage. But in his mind, he's really taken the time this bout to focus in on what it will take physically to win this fight, rebuilding his body, getting in there. And I think what Max is trying to teach us through his recent interviews, not just ahead of this fight, but after the last few, is that he is that rare mental Michael Jordan. He is that rare all-time great who can refocus, recharge, I'm no longer in that same fear space, even though he's in an uphill battle against Gaethje. I think this is going to be full all-action brilliance that we expect. But let's let this guy show us his greatness before we start writing the obituary.
It's funny with, you think about fan favorites like Justin Gaethje. Nobody's a bigger fan favorite than Max Holloway, though. Can you imagine if he did this? Just you talking about it, I'm imagining him going in there. Because a lot of people, I think, would point to that second Poirier fight and be like, well, he didn't have the size, he couldn't do this. So if you're stuck on that kind of thing, he's an underdog, and I think he is a literal underdog in this fight. But if he's able to go in there and do that, can you imagine the cult of Max Holloway, where that's going to go? Especially because then he puts himself right back into that Ilya Topuria thing, right? He can just go back and if they're doing a big show, couldn't he just slide right back into that conversation in the featherweight? So it's just I think he's one of those. And here's a crazy stat for you guys. You think of Max Holloway and you think of, my God, the guy's been around forever, just like you would with Poirier. If you look at the top 6, the 6 fighters at the top of this card, the 2 title fights in this BMF, he's the youngest one of that group. He's 32 years old. Nuts. He's just slightly younger, 6 months younger than Jamal Hill, but he's the youngest guy in this group. It's a crazy thing. We sometimes put Max away, and I think, remember when he was kind of spacing out in one of those interviews and we were worried about his mental capacity?
Yeah, Bisping caught him on air.
Yeah. There was things like that happened where I think really people who've watched his career were worried about, but you watch him over the course of time and you think that was just a weird happen thing. Whatever happened there was just an anomaly, right? Like you didn't think of it long term because you see him against Calvin Kattar talking and just lighting him up and in the craziest way possible. You see him in these fights. If it happens, what BC said, I mean, if it happens and he shows up and does that, he's actually the size, he's ready for it, and he beats Justin Gaethje, the cult of Max is going to be enormous, isn't it? I think it's just going to go out. It's going to be off the charts.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. For a guy who has finished Jose Aldo twice, this could be his best win in a certain way because he went up a weight class, defying expectations.
Yeah, the doubts are bigger, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, there were some doubts, obviously, the first time he fought Aldo. But then, he finished him off from, I think, mount or back with the strikes and then did it again in the follow-up in almost an identical way. But to go up a weight class against just let's be honest about Justin Gaethje. I was wondering about that class of 155ers who was going to come through and wipe everyone out. And Justin Gaethje, pushed back against Fiziev,
That's
rallied,
the one.
then head kicks Dustin Poirier. And I'm like, well, shit. Some of us buried this guy way too quickly. He is 35 years of age. I don't know if the stat applies as strictly because it's a BMF title. It's not a real weight class title. It doesn't have the same value.
I love hearing you debate that. I love hearing you scientifically try to fight the battle of the stigma of your own stat. This is great theater.
Stigma? I've looked so good with that motherfucking stat. Are you kidding? There's no stigma attached to it. But I guess what I wanted to point out was if Max goes in there and does what you're rightly describing and what some people think is unthinkable in defeating Justin Gaethje up a weight class, claiming a belt, he's already probably going to go into the Hall of Fame. This would expedite it.
Yeah.
Also, guys, how big would a Topuria championship fight be at featherweight in Spain if the dance partner is Max Holloway coming off of a heroic late career type of performance that this could be? And by the way, to add on my point earlier, they've actually been training because he's putting on more bulk at sitting down on his power, because we all know that was the thing that separated him from Poirier in that rematch. Great 5-round fight. Max could never hurt him or really get over the top. I don't know if that will change in this one, but how big would Topuria versus Max be, whether they put it in a bull ring in Spain or they do it in Luke's underwear, to be fair, right? I mean, because that's really where that fight belongs.
Lot of skid marks in my undies. I mean, we got to be careful around there.
That could be one of the bigger fights of this era, really. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it could be incredible.
It could be. That would be amazing. Because of where Max is. Max would be going into that in a situation where he's basically being lowered into a cauldron, which would be Spain. If it's all just like we're talking about, and Ilya Topuria being where he's at, that's the height of momentum.
I've been listening to Shaq Majori, who won't stop texting me. Did an interview.
Look, would you just retweet him already? I mean, come on, right? Just retweet him.
I mean, the thirstiness. You ever seen that clip of Denzel Washington as Malcolm X? That brother's starving. That's how I would describe Shaq Majori. But he did an interview with Justin Gaethje, and Justin Gaethje sort of going on like, yeah, I don't really want to do. I don't want to hurt him too bad. If I can break his arm, if I can shatter his leg, that would be better. And I'm in no way here trying to talk Justin Gaethje out of his own confidence. Like, that's what you would need. There is a part of me that wonders, though, that he feels like I'm the bigger man. I'm a dominant puncher and kicker at this weight class anyway. If I just lay the lumber to this guy, he will fall. And here's the thing. If he becomes the first guy to stop Max Holloway with strikes, holy shit, Justin Gaethje even gets a lot out of this beyond just the victory itself. But on the other hand, if he just thinks he can lay the lumber to him and Max still has that all-time durability with him, it sets up for an interesting later on.
Okay, I love Chuck, I want to send that to you because I love the way that Luke teed that up. We always say that when someone's fighting a dominant wrestler, what if they can stay on their feet? How does that change this dynamic? Isn't this Max's fight to lose if he is actually able to install distance and speed? Because we know the technical advantage he's going to have over Gaethje. Gaethje's not going to take him down. I'm talking myself into Max. Do it, do it. Not only... Yeah, man, talk about this, please. I'm just going to enjoy it with these pit stains. You know what I mean?
I think that you guys are right. I think that Gaethje, he just knocked out Dustin Poirier, who beat, if you just do this kind of math, right? Like you could do this math where Poirier handled Holloway. So you could do this, but I think that Gaethje's mindset is that probably he will not be able to handle his pressure and power together. Like that if he's able to put these things together the right way, he could take out Max Holloway. That could be very dangerous. We've seen Max Holloway and with his footwork and speed and his ability to adapt, as you've mentioned many times in a fight. Like, I think that the more he withstands, the crazier it gets, right? I think that it probably does become Max's fight if he's able to withstand and make it into the later rounds.
BC, you know what else is happening here? Because I got asked about it. I didn't connect the dots at first, but someone did ask me. There's a little bit of the ghost of Tony Ferguson following this fight, which is to say, because of what Justin did to him and how brutal it was and how one-sided it did change his career. He was never the same after it. There's a lot of people saying, is it Max setting himself up for that? BC, to which you would reply,
I'm trying to paint a picture that I think Max is just built differently, that his ability to bounce back because of his mental toughness. And I'm not saying it's going to last forever, because we always use Chuck Liddell as a litmus test. When the chin goes, it's gone. It's not coming back. Max is not there yet, but I just think his guile, his toughness, his mind, like, what's the reason that someone like me originally missed Max's brilliance? Meaning that when he finally got to the title level after that long win streak and got to the Aldo fights, I picked against him in the first fight. I picked against him in the second fight too. What did I miss? Because it's the intangibles deep inside that truly separate this guy. Yeah, incredible volume striker, distance manager, takedown defenses through the roof. But really, it's the combination of his smarts, his IQ. Look at the adjustments he made after the first Volkanovski fight. And just that mental wiring that I don't think it's going to go down that way. I don't think he's there to be hit as consistently as Tony Ferguson. I think that when you add in those quotes that you guys said, that maybe Gaethje could be looking past him to a small degree on the idea of, if I just keep leg kicking him from a foot away, I'm going to break him down and set him up to be finished. Maybe not. Maybe not. I mean, Luke, emotionally, take me off of hyperbole mountain here for a second, if you need to. Give me the Apollo hook. But if Max wins this in an all-action affair, is this Randy versus Sylvia all over again?
Ooh. No. Couture was a really big name who got finished off by Chuck Liddell, went into retirement, and came back and got a title shot at heavyweight out of nowhere. I mean, he was, I don't have the odds in front of me, but when I say massively written off, I do mean massively. And then
what about the potential emotional earthquake? Because really, this is Randy versus Sylvia is always the feel-good example we use of somebody in the second half of the career finding one more moment. And Chuck, maybe to your point, why are we framing Max in that when he's only like 32, right? I mean, maybe this really isn't.
He's 32, but he's got that Nogueira mileage on him as well. And like that, I was amazing. I remember Nogueira eating punch after punch for year after year, and it never mattered until it did.
Right.
And then when it went, it was fucking done. Like the Nogueira chin had its expiration date. But you were gonna say?
No, I was just
okay.
I
was pitching it to you and you weren't ready.
I was it's funny to think about sustainability in the way that we're talking, because you could do the same thing with Justin Gaethje. Like, at some point you're like, how can he continue this? I remember having a conversation with him whatever year it was when he was fighting Luis Palomino in his second fight, World Series of Fighting, and saying, like, surely this can't sustain. Like, you can't sustain this kind of fighting. And talking to his coach, Trevor Whitman, at the time, and just basically talking about, and now he's had, not just that, but he's went into UFC, he's fought for all these years later, he's still putting on monumental fights. You feel like, even for guys like him, it could just happen, right? At some point. It could be this fight. Could be Max lights him up, and all of a sudden it's the other. He
had wars after the Palomino fight. He obviously had wars here in the UFC, but he reinvented himself, and so I think that to me is a big difference. Right?
You're right. I mean, he has to an extent. I still think he gets away from caution. Like, his self-preservation is not like some fighters.
Okay, fair enough, but I think there's a lot more self-preservation than you might be giving him credit. Like, for example, if you go back and watch the first Poirier fight that Gaethje had. Dude, he's just walking into shit and then trying to get as close as he can for leg kicks, and then just got eaten alive. He didn't do that against Poirier the second time, and you're like, oh well, Poirier was done, but then he comes back and he ices BSD, and you're like, well, maybe not. Like, I mean, there could be a lot. Could be like, I mean, I want to talk about Justin Gaethje here for just a second as well. He did an interview again with Shaq Majori, who just won't stop fucking texting. I mean, that brother's starving. He was basically conceding. The winner of Saryuki, and we'll talk about in a minute, Saryuki and Oliveira, they're going to get the title shot. I'll just fight that winner in March. BC, are you surprised that he just punted on he gets the next title shot?
Who are you saying gets the next title shot?
Gaethje. Gaethje, if he wins, he basically was like, yeah, I'll let Islam fight, blah, blah, blah. I'll see whoever the winner is.
I mean, look, you stack victories over Poirier and Holloway in succession. You know, you're going to get the title shot in any division at any moment. But we got kind of an issue here because Oliveira versus Saryukian has been exclusively sold, as, from my vantage point, as the #1 contender fight. I interviewed Saryukian for Morning Kombat, and that Armenian Hulk told me, no, he interrupted me and said, no, this is the #1 contender fight. The winner will be fighting the champion next. And also Poirier, the fan favorite, just reinvented himself, and he hasn't fought this current champion yet. I don't know what the UFC will do, and I don't even know what they should do at this moment. I know you're looking for something beyond white belt reactions in terms of my analysis and not just really shitty humor. But I got to say, guys, I am a little bit perplexed on who deserves it most, because I know you were teeing me up to tear down Justin Gaethje's argument. But dude, he head kicked up Dustin Poirier, so maybe that takes DP out of it to begin with. I mean, if he beats him and Max,
Poirier is saying on social media yesterday he's next for Islam.
They all think they are. So my question back to you guys is, I can't figure it out. Who actually would deserve it the most?
Honestly, if Poirier is going to be ready, I think it'll be him. Yeah. Whether or not it should be, it will be.
Really?
And or if I'll say this. It seems like winner or loser of the Holloway Gaethje bout gonna need some time off. I don't know that, but it seems likely.
That seems like an educated guess.
Saryukian and Oliveira is a 3-round fight, not a 5, and not a bruising fight in the same kind of way, although one could get their lights put out. You never know. It seems like they're going to be next up just by virtue of availability.
Yeah. I would have no problem. I mean, if it's after what Poirier did, and to go through, like you were talking about, all these monsters that are coming up in the division. I was with you. We were talking about this. We are like, dude, it is, you go from like 4 to 10, and you're like, good luck.
Yeah, all V's and Z's in everyone's name. You're
every one of them. Poirier just did it, and I would have no problem. The way he did it, the way he overcame it, it's just such OG stuff. And I'm like, you got it. Like, I feel like they would be missing an opportunity if they didn't do it at this point.
Yeah.
But it's a weird situation because we know how it is, man. It's recency bias, and it's perception based off of what just happened. And you've got 2 critical fights about to happen. And like, say your boy Saryukian goes right through Oliver. Nobody does this. Not like this Charles Oliver that we know. If he goes right through him, I mean, it's going to be tough.
28, ready to go.
I know.
They're just going to give it to him.
It's going to be tough. Point. And you have they also have the backstory with him and Islam from way back when they fought before. So it'll be very interesting. I think that's what makes it so fun. You have so many contenders and so many variations of what could happen here.
I'll say this too, BC. If Justin Gaethje becomes the guy who changed Tony Ferguson's career and becomes the first person to stop Max Holloway with strikes, whoa.
Yeah.
You're dealing with maybe not the best striker in UFC history, but maybe the most punishing striker in UFC
I think
history.
It's fair to say that right now, and we did this exercise in the past in Morning Kombat, I think Justin Gaethje is already the greatest action fighter in the history of mixed martial arts and the UFC banner. Like the most rewatchable on UFC Fight Pass. And he's only going to add another brilliant chapter here. But if he's able to, like you say, put Holloway's name on there right after Poirier, he doesn't need the full championship to go down where he's going to end up going down as a first ballot Hall of Famer. Because when you have those layers to who you are, the ability to be so fan serving in your style, you still have a very glossy record and continuously work your way back into the title picture. It says something about a man. Seriously, this is one of the greatest in this category of, oh, who's he fighting? I don't care. What city? I'm there. Like, these fans travel in the UFC and they pay for it too. They pay a lot.
I can't fucking wait for this fight.
I just was thinking that. I don't know if it's because you sold it like BC on the front end, you're on Holloway, now you're going Gaethje, and I was sitting there thinking the exact same thing. I'm like, dude, this is an insane fight, isn't it?
Yeah, it's super insane. And by the way,
you know what? Should it be the main? Should it be the main, Luke? Let's have that argument, you old bitch.
I mean, you don't have to be hostile. Nice to see you. You seem friendly. BMF over a weight class title. I don't know, dude. I don't know.
Star power, baby. Star power.
I get it. I mean, listen, if they did it, would it be a crime? No, it would not be a crime. But
They like it.
I do think
I think they like it in that spot.
Yeah,
though, to be
I think
honest.
just, dude, it's such glue in the middle, you know? I mean, you're going to need a cigarette after that. You know what's going to happen? Everyone's going to go to the bathroom after that fight. No, they're going to miss the women's co-main. I swear.
I guarantee you're right about that.